Charlie Vann here with Bachelorette Season 16, Garin Flowers. I should also say a professor of journalism as well at USC. Also been an entertainment reporter as well. Done a lot of intriguing things. First up, how are you, man?
I'm good. It's a fun time. Work is really starting to pick up, and I couldn't be more excited with everything I'm doing right now.
Now, before we get into about Bachelorette Season 16, are as for professor going, is everything you're doing right now virtual?
Everything's virtual. I have not met my students. This semester makes it a year that I've been there. I started last spring, and I only had 2.5 months to be in person with my students, and then when we went virtual, and it's been that way for a whole year.
Has it had any challenges just because like checking the assignments just because are you doing broadcasting as well, or are you doing like a convergence broadcasting print as far as your classes go?
Yes, that's a good question. I work with students who are doing broadcast, students who are doing print, students who are doing social media. So yeah, I work kind of across the board.
Now when you're working with them one-on-one, are you doing like this, like Zoom, like virtual a lot more? Are you just having them submit their video packages, and how are they doing that as from the broadcasting aspect, or is it kind of a protocol with that? Because normally, with broadcasting classes, you go out to the field, you bring it back, your professor looks over that.
There's definitely been a lot of challenges, and the students have stepped up big
Mhm.
time. I don't know how I would have handled this had I been a college student. I probably would have been in like a depressive funk,
Yeah.
but they just like really step up, and they deal with that too, with some emotional and mental health issues, and we are very lenient with them about that. But they're able to do interviews on Zoom just like this, and they're able to do their stand-ups in their rooms or whatever, or wherever they're comfortable going, and they do a great job of piecing together news stories the best way we can, which is now this way. And they do a good job at it. It's still good quality work, and it's all about the writing, it's about the reporting, it's about the being on time, and they get all that.
And how much is like shot on the phone and LED lights? Because that's what's so cool now is at our disposal, all the your phone, and you can on Amazon get some of this at home equipment.
Yeah, so we have a broadcast studio where they can check out equipment, but obviously that's been shut down because of the
Mhm.
pandemic. So everything for them has mostly been on their phones. Now, I think some students were able to check out some equipment, but for the most part, um, they do a lot of work on their phone right here. Why not? I used to when I was a reporter, I used to shoot a lot of stories on my phone too.
Well, I mean, the quality is like most smartphones are 1080p, which is
Yeah.
awesome, and you can also get if you don't have now. Does your students edit on Adobe Premiere?
Uh, they edit on Premiere Pro. Yeah, Premiere Pro. So
I remember the old school Premiere Pro.
yeah,
I
yeah.
back in those journalism class days and those old XLR cameras.
Yep, yep. Man, I towards the end of my news career, I got so just like forward thinking with video and transfer. I shot an entire story with a GoPro.
Oh
Entire
wow.
story, whole thing. Yeah, and it was
Did
dope.
did you ever remember, did you ever have to do that old school editing where you're kind of rewinding, you got to go from export to tape?
Luckily, I missed that. Like, I think that was maybe like 5, 6 years
My
before
old
my
high
time.
school had that actually in our production class. Like, I don't know if they wanted like you got to feel the pain of what it was like to
Right.
edit in
It's
the
a
80s.
like, no, I never got to do tape to tape. Thank God. All analog.
What's some of like this is an incredible time, I feel. Well, any time's kind of incredible, I think, for journalism, but for student journalists right now, what's been your biggest advice to your classes, and what's when it comes to like this, like interviews and coming up with questions? Because I noticed in your reel, your entertainment reel, you asked a very intriguing question to the Knives Out crew about charade, and they like that. So
Yeah.
what do you ask? What do you tell them their advice when they're like, Garen, I want to go out and I want to do red carpets or even news, but like, what is a good question? And so, what is your advice there?
Yeah. So I tell them that, regardless of if we're in a pandemic or not, the tenets of journalism are still the same. You still
Mhm.
want to ask the who, what, when, where, why, how. You still want to make sure you're digging for good information and getting the true essence of the story. So we make sure to teach them that, like, don't lag just because things are virtual now, or just because we don't have that same connectivity of being able to go to a story in person, you still have to do the basics and do them well. So my advice is just like do the best you can, and
Mhm.
and to stand out. Like, that question I asked at the Knives Out thing, I just got really lucky that just like I had just watched Charade, and the movie was very similar. So when you're able to find those nuggets of information, and that's where research comes from, when you're able to find those nuggets of information that stand out, it's memorable in your stories and your pieces. So I tell them just to like do whatever you can to be creative and to stand up. Don't be basic.
And even how about for like, some of these red carpets, you don't always know, like, especially if you're like at film festivals, you may not get a chance just yet to see that film, but you're on the carpet. It could be even just a short film. It could be the student film section and you haven't seen it. So like advice from there, like, especially for someone starting out and they're on that red carpet, like, okay, I haven't seen the film, but what's a way I can ask an intriguing question?
Even if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, even if you haven't seen the film, because sometimes on these like red carpets, like especially like I said at a festival, you might not had a chance just yet, especially like that opening night, and then there may be some films, some cast on there. That, oh, I haven't seen the film yet, but you still want to get that engaging interview out
Yeah.
of them.
So I found a little secret, and it was thanks to one of my fellow entertainment reporters. Like you said, a lot of times we don't see the movies beforehand.
Mhm.
When I do junkets, which
Mhm.
are sit down interviews with the cast of a movie, that's called a movie junket. I usually see the movie before then. Like 10 times out of 10, I see the movie before then. When I'm doing red carpets, unless I'm doing the red carpet after the junket, I haven't seen the movie. So a lot of the movies I hadn't seen. So like Bad Boys, I two or Bad Boys 3, I did the red carpet, but didn't do the junket, and um not Knives Out, I had done the red carpet before the junket. So I hadn't seen the movie. So, you know, the biggest thing is to find ways to connect with the people who you're going to interview.
Mhm.
So, like, Daniel Craig, who's in Knives Out, let's say that his birthday is in January and my
Mhm.
birthday's in January. That's a nugget that no one would know.
That
Or let's say,
connection.
right, let's say that his father was a detective.
Mhm.
That would be interesting. Like, if you find that information, I guarantee you 99% of the other journalists on this red carpet did not know that. If it was like something that was kind of like buried. Don Johnson is in that movie.
Mhm.
He was in Miami Vice, and he was like a detective in Miami on that show. That's a connection. My mom, I told her I was interviewing Don Johnson. She was like, "He's such a handsome man." So he was walking by me, and I said, "My mom loves you." She said, "You're so handsome." He was like, "Tell your mom." I said, "Thanks." That was a real life thing that happened, and I told him that, and that made for a fun piece of video. I don't think we ended up using it, but it made for a fun piece of video. So the way you ask good questions and do fun things is like you pull from outside of the norm. Like,
Mhm.
what was it like acting in this movie? What was the best part about your character? Those are the questions you have to ask, but like they're very basic. When you can find those like small, interesting, unique questions, that's when you get those like great sound bites.
Was journalism something you always wanted to pursue growing up, or did it kind of come late?
I was a nerd growing up. All I did was play video games and go to school, and that was it. I did sports as well. So growing up, I wanted to program video games. I mean, you can't get any nerdier than that. And
What
I
was your
actually
go-to game?
Zelda,
Oh, nice.
Secret of Mana,
Mhm.
all the Mario's. Um, so I majored in computer engineering my first year in college. So I was taking it very seriously. I was taking it very seriously in high school. I was programming video games, majored in computer engineering. Then I realized that calculus was not for me, and you had to get through that. And
Not
just
for
and
many
just I just
journalism or English majors.
and I just realized that it was something about it that just didn't fit me. Like
Yeah.
something about this career, this field is not connecting. And I know this is what I wanted to do, but it's not connecting. And when I discovered journalism, that's when my
Mhm.
personality just exploded. And I became the man that you see today after I discovered that being around people, interviewing people, talking to people is what I wanted to do.
Well, what's intriguing is that if you go, you have two different reels. You have your news reel and your entertainment. So, and I know you were on a friend of mine's podcast, Erin Hill.
Mhm.
Shout out to her. She says hi, by the way.
Love Aaron.
You had mentioned about making that switch for news and how you just couldn't do it anymore because it's got to be definitely taxing, but also rewarding too in the news that you're providing. But once again, what was that instance? You're like, man, I gotta do something different.
Yeah, Charlie, this is probably one of my favorite questions. It got to the point to where I was just like, like this is dramatic, but I felt like I was dying. Like my shoulders were hurting, my neck was hurting, my head was hurting. I was angry every day. I was just not happy. You know, news. You probably sympathize with the reporter having to see like,
Mhm.
you know, crime scenes and dead bodies and talk to people who've lost loved ones and, you know, all the horrific things. But like really the toxicity on the inside of newsrooms is really what causes the most, I would say, mental strife in the news industry. It's not really talked about much. There's a lot of toxicity.
Mhm.
There was a clubhouse room today about just like a media check-in, and people are just talking about how their newsrooms, they just always feel like their back is against the wall. So, you know, shout out to the newsrooms and the news organizations that are actually healthy on the inside and support each other. So I realized I needed to make that switch when, I don't know if you remember the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting in Fort Lauderdale. It was where the kid who had just graduated the year before came back and came back with a gun. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and I had friends who had gone to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. You know, I'm far removed from high school, so I don't know anyone currently, but that just hurt me so much knowing that that impacted my community and whatever it may be. So it just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do that story. Don't send me there. I don't want to do it. When the Vegas shooting happened, the Vegas mass shooting happened, I was like, don't put me on that story. I don't want to do it. And when you're a reporter that doesn't want the big story, that's when you know it's like time to call it quits because you're just not in it anymore. And that's the point I had gotten to.
And was there a particular story that you're so close to that it was hard just to sleep?
Mm. Yeah, this was early on in my career. There was this the mayor of this small town, and it's not like, you know, mayors of big cities where they have a lot of haters. You know, mayors of small towns, it's like everyone loves you pretty much, as long as you just do, you know, what the good old boys want. And the mayor was this sweet woman, and her daughter was just like this 16-year-old student who was just like very sweet and just like had a bright future ahead. And I interviewed her daughter one time for a story. And then months later, I got a call that there was a bad car crash. A couple teens had died. And I found out that Emily Kettering, the mayor, her daughter was one of the kids that died.
Oh man.
I was heartbroken. I was absolutely heartbroken and just wish that I would have been able to do something because like the kid who was driving was like under the influence of something or something, I don't know, something like that. And she wanted like more justice for her daughter. And I just kind of like dropped the story after I did the initial story of her dying. And that one is something I think about from time to time that kind of eats me up.
Well, then you made that switch to entertainment, which is a little definitely more fun, more positive. You know, there can be some drama here and there, depending on what story you're covering, but for the most part, I mean, you got
Yeah.
to interview The Rock. You
Yeah.
know, man, talk about that. That guy is so beloved, and I mean, his personality feels like it's like lights up the room.
Electric. Well, first of all, I will say that my move from news to entertainment happened at a good time when I was like happy with what was going on in news.
Yeah.
So I did make the decision with a sound mind and not like get me the hell out of here, but like actually I'm kind of enjoying the way things are going, but this is what I've always really wanted to do, you know, later on in my career. So some friends pushed me, and thank God for good friends. And I made the shift. I moved to LA with no job,
Oh, wow.
no leads, yeah, nothing. I just had to build from the ground up after 8 years of experience in news. It was like very disheartening to get like no love when I moved out here. It was like none. It was like, and you have how much experience? So this is LA. It's a different beast. So eventually I found my job promoting films with Cinemark, which is a dream come true. I still do it, by the way. And I just got to do the most amazing films. I started with Terminator, and I got to do Genesis Man. Didn't meet Will Smith during that time, but Genesis Man I got to do. And then I got to fly to Cabo, Mexico to interview the cast of Jumanji. And
That's
like
awesome.
Karen Gillan, Aquafina, Jack Black were already like, I was already like starstruck over them. But then when I met The Rock and Kevin Hart, my life was over. I was like, I can die a happy man, you know? And both are so nice and electric. When they're together, they're just so electric and so nice. You don't get this air that they're just like too big to talk to you or whatever. Like they were interacting with fans the entire time. because we were in this small resort. I mean, like we would see them walking around, you know what I mean? So we would see people walking up to them. And like you could tell that Kevin Hart and The Rock just love their fans, and they
Mhm.
love they appreciate that they're famous. You know, some people are famous and they're like, oh, I don't want to do autographs, I don't want pictures on it. Like The Rock and Kevin Hart appreciate every single person who values them as a public figure.
Do you think that comes from, and we've heard Rock talk about this a lot, that, the NFL is the greatest thing that never happened to him, and, struggling in the CFL and $7 in his pocket, which of course is his production company. And Kevin Hart talks about those bars, those small room stand up, shows. Do you think a lot of that correlates, that they haven't forgotten where they came, that struggle, and just very grateful that, this path led. And for you to correlate that question, what was that smallest market where you're sitting in the newsroom and is like, is this going to lead to a big station? Did you ever have that moment, or even lead into what you're doing now?
Yeah. You're asking great questions, man. Um, so I do believe that their upbringing, obviously, I
Hmm.
think their parents and the people around them have a big say in that too. But like, I, a big part of that. But I think that the fact that they both come from humble beginnings, like they both failed so much.
Hmm.
You know, that's what, like Will Smith said it before. Like literally, working out is failure. Like your muscles are failing, and then they're getting stronger and they're building. And I think The Rock and Kevin Hart grinded it out for so long from the bottom that by the time they rose and got to the top, you could tell they really appreciate it, you know? So yeah, I do think their humble beginnings has led to their appreciation for their fans. As far as for my career, funny story, I was at my first market, and the weather guy used to have poker nights. Everyone loves the weather. So the weather guy would have poker nights, and Charlie, I would sit there and not play poker. I would sit there and watch The Voice. The Voice had just come out, and I was like, man, this show eats me alive. Like I just start to tear up when I'm watching it, the stories, and I get so excited when someone has a great performance. And it ate me up to the point, Charlie, where I was like, I want that. I like this more than just a fan.
Hmm.
I want to be a part of this.
Hmm.
So me watching The Voice at those poker nights at the weather guy's house is what really showed me that I wanted to be in entertainment. So I knew I would move to LA one day because of that.
And it was just kind of one of those long ongoing process, like news, because entertainment, because I feel like the thing with entertainment, unless you're in the right market to where it focus, where news and sports seems to be in many markets. Does that sound correct? Like many, depending if you're like small town Kansas, small town Texas, you're probably gonna you have news and sports.
Yeah, everyone wants to move up in markets. A lot of people don't realize that there's market sizes, right? So New
Hmm.
York is number one, LA is number two, and then once you get down to like the 200s, you have like Montana and cities in Montana and cities in Iowa and in North Dakota and South Dakota that have the smaller markets.
Hmm.
Like Minot, North Dakota. You know what I mean? So I've had friends all over. Sioux City, Iowa, places in Montana, Wichita, Kansas. I was in Tallahassee. I've had friends all over the country in small cities. And your goal is to definitely move up. Move up, make more money, bigger stories, more impact. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
there was definitely times where I was like, I can't wait to move to the next level. But I always made sure that I was ready where I was and killing it where I was before I moved on to the next level. I never felt like I moved on to the next level prematurely.
When you're looking at your demo reels, how much do you like sit up at night? You're like, okay, I think this should be on. No, I think this should be on. And going back to your students, what's your advice when looking at what is the right story, the right stand up to put in that demo reel?
You look at your demo reel is a never ending beast.
Hmm.
There was times where I was like, this is it. And then, a week later I'd be like, no, let me put this in there. I think it's important I was talking to a friend about this the other day. You can't always do what other people say you should do or other people think you should do.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to do what you feel is right. So I think it's important, and I would tell my students is to like create your demo reel,
Hmm.
come up with what you think is good, and then shop it around for advice. So you put together your demo reel, what you think looks good, shop it around to your mentors, your professors, your friends, and get their advice. And then I might say something to the effect of, do you have a story showing some movement? Do
Mhm.
you have a story where you're a little bit more, confident, or where you have a different tie or something, something like that? And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I had one that I cut that we could use. I do have this one, or I have one where it's like, me at the water as opposed to me at the Board of Education office, So I tell them just to figure out what it is they really enjoy and like that they're doing, and
Mhm.
piece it together, and then you can get help that way.
Now, if you're like a student like that, is kind of torn. It's like, maybe you're intrigued by news and you've done that through your classes, but also entertainment or sports. Do you suggest creating two different sets of demo reel? I remember in radio when I was interning in radio, I had a sports demo reel and then I had a top 40 or alternative because I was
Nice.
interning. So like just to kind of keep options, is that good to do to have like the options, or is it better to kind of focus on maybe one at first?
So I think it's important to focus on one at first. You can't go
Mhm.
wrong with having multiple demo reels. Like you could never
Mhm.
go wrong with that. Like if you have a reel and an entertainment reel, you have enough material. Why not? Let's put that together. Let's do that. But if you're kind of like just kind of have like generic footage, you don't really have a lot. I wouldn't want someone to go out of their way to find footage that could slow them down from pursuing another route. Um, like I'm getting into VO now, and VO you have different demos. You have
Mhm.
one for your commercials, one for animation, one for like audiobooks, you know what I mean? To diversify. But it's good to like focus on one lane at first. So right now I'm just focusing on commercial. So with students, I would say I've done entertainment, I've done news, I do entertainment, I did news. Figure out what kind of direction you want to go first, because
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you're stuck in that lane. You know, it, I knew I wanted to give news a try first. If I just did entertainment and never did news, I would have regretted it. If I would have done news and never gone into entertainment, I would have hated it. So I did news. I'm so glad I did it. And then I made the transition. And while I didn't have a entertainment reel, I had the TV experience. I had the writing experience. I had the grind. And that's how I've been able to find work and get some really cool opportunities.
I feel like there's three things that always correlate together: music, acting, and journalism, because it all comes down to that reel, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's always intriguing. I just say, like, hey, a lot of times you feel like you're in that band or that artist, like, listen to it, just shopping around. How many markets when you were graduating did you send out your demo reel to?
Oh man, that's a great question. I send it out to I'm more of like a quality applier. Like I just
Mhm.
really just put my foot in a strong application and
Mhm.
try to connect with people at that place. And that has worked very well for me. Now, a lot of other people have done the whole like throw whatever at the wall, throw a piece of spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I had friends who applied to every market, like the bottom like 100 markets.
Mhm.
I was like, what are you doing? You know? So that's just some people's approach. Some people have the mental stamina to just like put together all these applications and apply everywhere. For me, it was like, okay, this is a big deal that I'm applying here. This is a major deal. I'm going to like do whatever I can to figure out this situation with this TV station. And so I did that. I maybe sent it 12 different stations, maybe anywhere between like 12 and 20. And I remember I was back. I went to grad school in Northwestern in Chicago.
Mm,
I was back
awesome
and forth.
school.
Thank you. I was back in Fort Lauderdale after I graduated. My brother lived in Tallahassee because he went to FAMU. He said, "Just come up. I'll try to introduce you to some people at the local stations," because he was in radio, so he had great contacts. So I had a meeting with the second ranked station, but on my way up to Tallahassee, I got a call from a Tallahassee number. And it was a woman named Tristan, and she called me and she was just like interested, wanted to get to know me. And she was the news director at my first TV station, WCTV, the number one station in Tallahassee.
Wow.
And she was just like, could we set up a time to Skype or whatever? I said, Tristan, I am on the road to Tallahassee as we speak. And she was like, no way. It was crazy. So I met with her the next day,
The
and she
universe is funny like that.
funny. Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy.
Well, looking at just entertainment in general, and like, right, this is such a great era as far as the platforms, like I said, Zoom, podcasting. When you're looking at your students and is there ever that entrepreneur chat, like kind of that, like, I mean, obviously it's great to work with a station, that experience and that exposure, but at the same time, have you ever had a student say, you know what, Garin, I would love to do my own thing. I see how popular podcast vlogging is, YouTube, I can create a website or have somebody help me create a website. What is your kind of thought with that as far as someone just wanting to do it on their own?
Yeah, I have some students who are just like really independent, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just who they are. So for someone who wants to do it on their own, my advice to them would just be, if you could get some experience in a traditional outlet, but just make sure you have a way to fund it. Make sure you have a way to fund your podcast. Make sure you have a way to fund your YouTube channel or whatever until it's making money for itself. I have friends out here who are making big money on podcasts and YouTube shows, but it takes so much time to get to that point. It really takes a lot of time and dedication. So I say just try to find a way to fund that until you do it, and just go all the way with it. Like, go all the way.
Do you still keep in touch with former students? You still keep connected?
Yeah. So my first time teaching was at FAMU, Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, a historical Black college, and they're students of mine who are like in top markets. This was in 2013.
Mhm.
So there's students of mine who are in top notch, top 10 markets that I taught in school or met at FAMU and from other courses or whatever. And it's really cool to see that. And so some of them I keep in touch with, definitely social media, Facebook, Instagram, but some will even text me, or we'll have phone conversations every now and then. As far as USC, I've been here for a year. So there's been like 3 graduations from spring, summer, and fall. So there's some students that keep in touch, ones that I kind of help with their job stuff, ones that, follow me on Instagram and will just kind of like check in every now and then. So it's pretty cool.
When did you decide to also like, hey, I want to throw on that teaching hat. I want to help. I want to advise. Has that always been in the back of your mind getting into this industry, or did it just happen that way?
Yeah. So one of the reasons I got my master's was because not only was I not ready to be in TV news, but I also wanted to teach one day, right? I knew I'd want to be a professor at some point and give back in that way by sharing the knowledge that I had learned. And so it was, to my surprise, huge when I was 25 or 26 and was able to teach in the beginning of my career, like that was pretty odd. So that was really cool to be able to fulfill that at such an early age. And when I moved here, I wanted to just dive headfirst into entertainment. And, I was just like struggling, looking for work. And I was like, why don't I try to teach? Like, why don't I try to teach? And that day, it was a Saturday. That day I said, I'm going to email the dean. And I emailed her, Dean Bay at USC. And she got back to me that Monday. And that was that.
And now here you are in
I am. Yeah.
USC. And are
I'm
you are you
USC.
still getting time to also on the side cover? Well, I know with COVID and that, there's probably hasn't been any like red carpets going on, but since then, been able to be out there and still do interviews.
Yeah. So my main thing will always be entertainment. Like
Mhm.
that is what I moved here to do. And I would never teach full time because then I'll feel retired,
Yeah.
outdated and retired. So I only teach part time,
Mhm.
and I love that I do it. I love that I do it. I enjoy it so much. But entertainment will always take that front door for me. So I my job with Cinemark, where I interview the people in the movie and behind the scenes
Mhm.
to promote the film, I wasn't able to do that while I was on The Bachelorette,
Yeah.
just because they, preferred me not to do anything else on camera. But now that that's ended, I'm back doing it. So I just did a movie called The Mauritanian with Jodie Foster. So I just got to interview Jodie Foster a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
It was
awesome.
amazing. She's such a legend. It was amazing. And I have another movie coming up on March 1st for what's the name of that movie? It's called Nobody, I believe. It's called Nobody, and it actually has Pop Smoke in it. Rest
Oh,
in peace.
cool.
So yeah.
Is there anything that you also like to let your students know is like, because we all learn through experience and sometimes even the teacher's still learning, that you're like, definitely don't do this, or if you do this, this is how you can kind of bounce back from that.
Yeah. So right now I'm working with students who have this digital show called The Rundown, and I'm trying to teach them to be like laid back and loose and free flowing with it, but also to not be too free. Like,
Mhm.
we want you to be casual and conversational, but not to the point where it's like you're using the same slang you would use your friends, but we want that kind of same energy. So my job is to help them break that shell of like TV news reporting voice, but also not like just like slouching and
Mhm.
not really putting in that professional grade work. So my biggest thing is like just be free, be loose,
Mhm.
but be you and
Mhm.
have fun with it.
Well, one thing I think would always be good just for people in general, and not just like just in journalism, but for people to take journalism classes, at least that intro to reporting. I even say that with like improv, because what I always learned is I learned how to ask questions, but
Yeah.
I also learned how to answer questions. And I think if you're just looking at even like job hiring, like it's good to know that. And also you learn how to even more do your research, which I think in anything is good to know. And with improv, and you've probably learned this through a long time of reporting, it doesn't always go the way you want. And sometimes you'll ask that question. I'll bring up just a funny thing just from
Yeah.
college that I learned. My very first, like, I guess you could say, name interview was Daryl Hannah.
Oh no.
And my community college was covering, she was doing this, because she's very big into activism with the environment. And a couple of local colleges here in Dallas were invited. We were one of them. She does her guest speaker
Yeah.
series. And then we
What
got
was your
a
college, by the way?
so the community college was Richland College.
Okay.
And then I went on to UT Arlington here.
Okay.
And so we go in, just this few of us, I have my buddies, camera crew. I'm sitting, super nice. We get in the interview, and Richland at the time was like green Richland. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I'll say. So what do you think about opening question about schools going green? And then she's like, equal. She just turned, I don't like that. Like it's a branding. And I could just see, I'm like early 20s. I
Oh,
could
she
see.
turns to like her PR person.
No, no, no. She looks at me. I'm just staring at her. But at the side of my eyes, I could tell my crew are like, this interview's done. Cause she was like serious, like not angry, but like, she's annoyed that not by the question, but by the campuses do that. But in my mind, I'm like, oh crap. I ruined
Yeah.
this interview by asking that question. And at the end of it, I just like, well, I guess Richland has to change his campaign now. Cause she's
Yeah.
like, it could be in the color of your shirt. I was like, she laughed. So, but
Oh, that's good.
sometimes it may not always go. So like improv though, I feel like being able to ad lib. I mean, do you agree with that at all? I mean, like, and has there been an interview you've done where you're like, ooh, you had this question in mind and it just completely goes the opposite direction?
Yeah. I think I've definitely had some bad interviews, trust me, and said some dumb stuff. So you're right. When you go off the top of the dome, you never know what can come out. I don't think I've said like anything that was like wrong that was off the top of the head that like, backfired. But there was an interview I did one time for the trustee of a college. I asked about hazing and
Mhm.
she didn't like that. She told me not to ask about it. And I said, the reason I'm talking to you is to talk about that. Like, that's the main reason. We can talk about other stuff, but that is the one subject I need to get. And so she like cut off the interview right then and there. And it was a bad look for her because then I got the pissed off, upset look at her on camera, which I believe I used. um, and then there's a actor, John Ratzenberger.
Mhm.
And yeah, I butchered his name, I believe, but um, he had asked me a question about something and I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. And he got like pissed off. So
Like,
it,
how
it was
dare
like,
you?
I know, right? It was like some old school show or something about that. And he asked me and I didn't know. And so that stuck with me, like to try to just like, I don't know trivia or things that people might care about just in case. But then
Well,
I felt like crap. But then the very next interview, like one or two people later, the guy like fell in love with me and gave me a hug. So I was like, that's
there
the
you
love.
go.
Make up for it.
you're probably gonna have more more hits than anything, the more you do it. And you just never know. Some people just have like a bad day, or
Yeah.
they're burned out. Actually, just going back to the unique question, because I was watching an episode a few years ago of Joe Rogan about with Guy Ritchie, and Guy's talking about these press junkets, how they can just be, I mean, a little exhausting, especially
Yeah.
the questions, and he comes up with a word phrase that helps it. Once again, when you're going and you're interviewing, are you more looking again to try to find that, because you kind of can you read that from them a lot of times, just even if you're standing there next in line, you can kind of see, oh, okay, I may need to switch up my questions here.
Well, you just have to assume that they've already spoken to 30, 40, 50
Mm-hmm.
people. So they've heard all the questions. Like anything you can ask, they pretty much heard it all, unless you come up with something unique and different, to them or to you. And being that I'm with Cinemark, it's not a journalistic outlet. They're hoping to promote the film, so my questions are a lot more straightforward and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of to the point. But yeah, there's times where you kind of want to improv, like they say something and you want to work off of that. Like you shouldn't just be robotic and stoic and just like stick to the questions that are there by not listening to them and hearing what they have to say.
Does it ever annoy you whenever you see those famous clips of interviews where it's like, okay, you're not like the most famous one I'll just point out is the Robert Downey Jr. interview years ago. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, the Avengers report, where it did not talk about Avengers. Does that ever annoy you too? I mean, to see like from the reporting standpoint that they're not staying on track with what they're there to talk about, which, at times it just doesn't seem like, okay, this doesn't fit right here.
Well, it only would bother me if I missed out on an interview because of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
if Robert Downey Jr., got up and left and I missed him because of your stupid question, then I would be pissed. But
Mm-hmm.
you can ask whatever you want. So I think the big thing is, like I said, I'm not with a journalistic outlet, but for the journalists, they're looking for a certain story.
Mm-hmm.
These junkets are a privilege, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about this movie. They don't want to talk about this person's private life. They don't want to talk about whatever. But journalists, whatever access they get, they use. So yeah, junkets are a privilege, and it's really awkward and weird when there's like things outside of it that you ask because it's so much about that. So when it's like a criticizing question, they don't put up with that.
I think one thing that stands out, I mentioned earlier about Kevin Hart comedy, in journalism, there can be bombing too. There can be those flubs, those epic fails.
Yeah.
What is a known one that you have done that you still look back on? You're like, man, if I can take that back, or you just laugh at it.
Like an epic fail I had.
Yeah, yeah, just a because we see the bloopers. That's they get put out there with a lot with reporters and news that Is there any that you have that you like to just claim and you're like, you know what,
Of
it
course I
happened?
do. Of
Yeah.
course I do. Don't want to share it. No. Let's just say I've done a lot of live shots in my day on TV, and
Mhm,
there was times where it didn't go well.
mhm.
There was a live shot one time where we had just got these things called, everyone knows the big news trucks.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that's how we used to go live back in the day, and they're still news trucks, and news trucks still go live. When you go live with one of those, it's direct to TV. There's not
Mhm,
really a lag. But right when I started in my career, there were these things called TVUs that had just been invented, which were back that could send you live from a backpack. So a truck has literally
mhm,
been squeezed into a backpack. And obviously, when technology first comes out, there's always going to be its glitches and its issues. And the lag was about 10 seconds, 10 to 12 seconds. It was horrific. Now TVUs are like 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds,
mhm.
4 seconds, 5 seconds. Back then it was like 10 to 12. So there was one time where I was at a scene of like a car crash or something like that involving police and someone, and live on TV they could see me directing my photographer what I wanted them to do. I want you to do this, and then you're going to turn, and I'm going to do this, and I was live on TV. So I got a text like, "Oh snap, I saw it."
I feel like the TV photo bombers are like the hecklers of journalism. Have you
Yeah,
ever had to, during a stand up, whether it's news, entertainment, have you had that person behind you that might have tried to throw off your game?
yeah, yeah. Especially around like big events where it's like a sporting event or something like that, definitely. And then like people driving by and honking their horn, and yeah, it's all kind of stuff. I've seen it all.
Well, let's move on to The Bachelorette. Um,
Let's
yeah, also, I will say this, going back and watching that between Claire and Tasia, it's actually one of my favorite seasons. And the reason why I feel
wow.
is, well, and I'll be honest, I don't go super far back. I mean, there's some people that've been since day one, but I think too, and from being a contestant, the maturity. Uh, had you had seen some of the shows before, the seasons before, and what did you think about just the group of guys you got to be on the show with, and that camaraderie?
So I had never seen a full season before.
Mhm,
The reason I knew about Claire is because I was watching the Bachelor spinoff, Listen to Your Heart.
mhm,
There was two guys from LA that I'm friends with, Chris Watson and
okay,
Trevor.
mhm.
And those two were the final two, which was really cool that the two guys that I know are the ones who are standing last. Um, and I would watch them vie for love, and then I would see the advertisements for Claire. That's how I got involved. So I didn't really know much about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. That was like really my first like full season watching, and I had seen like clips or like an episode of like other seasons. So when I was quarantining, getting ready to go, I did start watching Rachel Lindsay's season. I did watch Becca Kufrin's season. I love Becca Kufrin, by the way. She's amazing. And I did watch like snippets of Colton's season. So by the time I got there, I at least was aware
Mhm.
of kind of how the show works and how it runs and things you should do, things you shouldn't do. So I had given myself enough research to where I had a little bit of a leg up, having done some research. As far as the camaraderie with the guys, just like how is that?
Yeah, just like right when you got into that house, was it instant? I know you've mentioned before. I know you mentioned on with Aaron, you're close to several of the guys. Name a couple, several.
Really close with Chasen,
Yeah, Chasen. I was gonna say Chasen. I know you talked about Chasen.
Jay, Jay, Spencer, cool with Demar, Riley, Ben, cool with Ben, Jordan Manier, who was sent home day one,
Mhm.
Paige and Chris Conran, who were sent home day one. Yeah, just a good list. Blake Moynes were pretty cool. So just all the guys we have a healthy respect for.
When you get out of that limo, what was going through your mind? How nervous were you, or were you nervous at all? And I mean, obviously, coming from your broadcast background, did the cameras in this facet, in this setting, bother you at all?
So I was not bothered by the cameras and the lights and all that stuff. I'm very used to that environment. That's where I come from. I was very nervous to meet Claire. I
Mhm.
was so nervous to meet Claire and to just make a good impression on her and to stand out. I was like, don't get sent home night one. you know, yeah. I mean, I think Claire's amazing, and I was super nervous meeting her. I was so nervous, and it was a good time. So stepping out of the limo, you can't like the weekend song. I can't feel my face. Like I couldn't feel my face, and I could barely feel my legs. And then you meet the other guys, and there was instant chemistry with the guys, but you're still a little cautious
Mhm.
worried that you don't know who these people are. So just be careful.
Well, at least
But
you had Joe there who works in medicine. So if you couldn't feel your face, that it's better.
that could have helped out. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go through your head at all, like, okay, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? And do you like to have like openers too, like, before the show? Like, how do you like to introduce yourself when you're meeting potential somebody?
Mm. I like to have fun. So like
Mhm.
if I have a smooth line to tell a girl or something flirty or smooth, I will definitely use that. Right. So I will like say it and I won't hesitate to say it because like women are getting boring conversation all day, every day from dudes. So like, what can I do to spice it up? You know what I mean? So I definitely would use a line if I have one, if there's something good enough. Um, and I thought about what I was going to say to Claire for like 2 weeks. Yeah, and then like maybe like the last 2 days is when you really have to like, all right, nail it, get it down. But I had been working on it for like a week or two.
Now, I know, and you've mentioned, about your stint on the show was shorter, but what did you take away and learn about yourself as far as dating goes that you're looking forward to maybe utilizing moving forward? And if you could have done anything different, what would have that been?
I learned that I wasn't being vulnerable enough in my past situations and just being open about how I feel and what I'm looking for. I'm a lot clearer on how I feel, what I'm looking for, what I deserve, what I expect, what I hope to give. You know what I mean? Like I'm very open and forward about those things now because I feel like that's the way to be is be honest with yourself and very honest and open with women. So that this process has definitely helped strengthen that and help me learn more about myself to where I want to do better because I want the best, you know. Um, and it was just like there's nothing that can really describe or explain the process and what it's like going through that. But the goal is to end up leaving a better person. If you don't end up with love, you leave a better person. So that was important to me.
Now, what was it like watching it
And
back? What was it like watching
uh,
watching?
I was super shy. I was at a watch party for the first one, and I was just like, I'm so nervous about how they're gonna portray me. Am I gonna look goofy? Am I gonna, look silly? So I was just very worried. But then like watching it back was very fun because like people were cheering me on and were excited and just like happy to see me. And the editors like gave me a great edit. I mean, it was really cool.
Did how did your family take, or even job? You're like, I'm gonna go on the Bachelorette. Like, how was that conversation, or were they pretty cool with it?
Yeah. So USC, my boss laughed and she was like, "That's cool. That's really cool." And she was so supportive of it. Right. So that was cool. My Cinemark job, the person I work with, she's a big fan of the show. So she was actually
Oh,
pretty
that
excited.
worked.
Yeah, that was super cool. And that's freelance. So I was able to just like
Mhm.
tell her, like, look, I just can't be booked the next or whatever. Um, my mom got a laugh out of it. My dad got a laugh out of it. My brother, they all thought it was hilarious. Um, my mom was making jokes about like wanting me to just like make it far and then lose. My aunt was making jokes like, "What are you gonna do if you make it to the end? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna propose?" She was sending me little memes. So my aunt is like very like serious. So the fact that she was doing that was absolutely hilarious. And yeah, it was just like my family was so supportive and just happy about it. And same with my job.
Did you realize how like Bachelor Fan Nation is, just how like connected, and like that there's fantasy, that there's Bachelorette fantasy, like fantasy football? Did you see that when you were doing your research, or is it you found that out after doing the
I found that out
taking?
after. I found that out after. I knew that there was a strong fan base just because like there was like these girls I used to work with that like were pushing me to apply. But as far as like the amount of fandom and the amount of attention I get, I did not expect that. It was insane. It was insane. It was
Well,
really
and you're not too far removed from season 16. What's life been like for you now after the show? Are you getting spotted more, people reaching out more? And what's been kind of that, just kind of the atmosphere for you?
yeah. I get spotted a little bit, not much. I was only
Mhm.
on for 3 weeks, so I didn't really get that much play. Um, so it's all good. But life is interesting. Life is good. There's a lot of people reaching out to you, a lot of women DMing me and DMing the other guys, and people just want to reconnect with you. A guy from like my childhood just like reached out to me and reconnect with me. So it's fun being able to um, enjoy folks and enjoy the fandom and all that good stuff. I really love it.
Now, do you have, this, we don't know yet who's going to be, the Bachelorette, and what the cast is going to be. But for anybody that is going to be in your shoes moving forward, what would you like to say to them? And just if you had to give, a little bit of advice that may help, maybe something once again you didn't do or to take advantage of.
Mm, advice I would give is be knowledgeable about the process and ask them all the right questions. Look at past seasons, like make sure that you're comfortable and vulnerable with this process, right? And then to know that like you got to be extra nice on camera to not be considered a villain. Like you don't want to have clips or anything turn into something that is bad, right? Like
Mhm.
I knew that like everything that I do is going to be seen, so I need to be, a good person and whatever, which you should anyways. But um, yeah, just like continue to be you and don't cause any extra drama or whatever because the cameras are rolling, and when you give them something to work with, they'll use it. They're not going to not use it.
Well, and this season has definitely been all the drama with. I think that is they're almost TNT right now.
So I'm gonna have to take the cake with my season. Season 16 will go down in infamy.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of drama. I mean, what do you think about this season? How do you feel about a lot of the contestants? Do you have any picks, any front runners in your mind right now?
Well, I think the women are beautiful.
Mhm.
I think they have sharp personalities. I like watching them. They're really cool. If there's anybody that I would want to, is there anybody I'd want to see?
Yeah, or anybody that stands
And
out to you right now from Matt,
yeah,
from what you've been seeing.
I like Abigail a lot. I think
Mhm.
she's so sweet and has such a great story. I like her a lot. I really like Serena P. I don't know why.
She's
Serena P.
funny. She's
Yeah,
funny.
she's funny. She's
She makes
sweet.
up words, rageful.
Right. Rageful and all sorts of stuff. It's like she's sweet. She's funny. Um, Bree is really cool. Michelle, people love Michelle. People love Michelle. I'm a Michelle fan. I like her. Um, who else?
Of course, we just saw Katie, leave.
Katie just left. Yeah, Katie's cool. I like Katie, but you could tell the love wasn't there. You could tell the
Yeah.
love story wasn't
Yeah.
there. Trying to think who else I might like.
She's kind of been more like if you watch the show, she's been like the big sister. Like she's
Right.
more like keeping everyone in check, making sure everybody, just kind of that more, I guess in a way, level-headed. Not that others
Yeah.
aren't, but like she felt like
She
that
would
big
speak up.
sister.
Yeah, she would
Yeah.
speak up. She would get involved. She would, make sure she was heard. And it's good that like someone was because it was just getting too
Mhm.
nasty. It was just getting too
Yeah.
nasty. Um, I'm trying to think who else I like. I think all the ones I like I mentioned or are home. Yeah, all around there's good girls. It's just whoever he connects with the most.
I do like,
So
I've said this in the beginning about Matt. I like that, well, one, not only that he's just a nice, genuine guy, is that we didn't really know a lot about him. I think it was kind of
yeah,
cool to kind of just somebody that hasn't been part of the process. Now, I'm sure it's a little overwhelming too, because especially, not being in there before and experiencing, but at the same time, I like his honesty. I like how upfront he was with what was going on. I love first night where he's praying, and I like that
yeah, yeah,
we're learning about him as much as the girls are as well.
yeah, absolutely. Like we don't know much about him except for what ABC is telling us or what we can find online. And every week we see more of his personality. And I think he's just a sharp guy. Like, obviously he's a good looking dude, but like he just like has a sharp personality to where like he's very he's upfront and he's got like this like fun nervousness to him, but like also is taking charge now. So that's good to where you see the like kind of innocence in him as someone that hasn't been on it, but is saying like I need to understand that this is my process and I can't have this negativity here in this house. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think he's doing a great job, and I like watching this season. This season's a lot of fun.
I like that resort, and there's been a lot of mud on this season, a lot of dirt. So if you're afraid of getting, it looks like a Tide commercial. That's sometimes.
What Bachelor in Paradise?
I'm intrigued to see what they do with Paradise. I'm in just because I don't know what's going on with with COVID. I know they were talking about Canada for Bachelorette, but that's not happening. Normally it's in.
Happening?
They said it's not as reports it's not going to happen in Canada. They're looking elsewhere. I think it's because of the restrictions and stuff in Canada.
Yeah,
Um, I,
absolutely.
d-
It's very restricted there.
I don't know that there is with Mexico though. I think you can I could be wrong. I think you can travel to Mexico right now, and that's normally where they film Paradise. Um, I'm intrigued to see. I actually like Paradise a lot just because it's a variety of people. Everybody's meeting, So I always feel like when watching The Bachelor, Bachelorette, obviously you have that one lead, that one person, which everybody kind of has a type, obviously, and that's what I like about Paradise a little bit. You get to just see more personalities and connections there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it seems fun. It's just that there's so many people that they can choose from now. I mean, you had
Yeah,
Claire and I's season, you have Matt's season, you have this upcoming season of The Bachelorette, which
yeah,
I'm sure that they'll be eligible. And you have the Listen to Your Heart people. I don't know if they're eligible or not, but you have that, remember?
yeah.
And then you have the people from,
Way
Hannah's
back.
season. Yeah, from
Sometimes
way
they'll
back.
they'll bring people back.
Yeah. So yeah. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think it looks like, it sounds like, that it's going to be more supersized. That they, like you
Right.
said, they have a lot of options. Plus, we didn't have it last summer. What's interesting is I know in the past the show has kind of correlated with the Olympics going on, like Winter
Right.
Games, and
Right.
now we're going to have games in Tokyo, which are still going to be called Summer 2020 because they did all this
Yeah.
branding and marketing. So it's just postponed. Jordan Burroughs, the wrestler, talked about that recently. He's like, they're just going to keep it that they spent all that money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Why?
that'd be kind of unique if they went back to that kind of competitive format, like the Winter Game, Bachelorette Winter
Yeah.
Games, and
That would be,
Summer Games. But
yeah, that would be interesting.
I hope it happens. I hope there is a paradise. I'm intrigued to see where Bachelorette lands. Heck, even if they kept it in Nemacolin again, I mean, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Or
Or La Quinta.
La Quinta. How is California right now as far, because I know there's still a lot of restrictions though, right?
There's still restrictions, but we just opened up restaurants a couple weeks
Okay.
ago, the weekend of my birthday on the 31st. And things are getting better. Numbers are going down. So hopefully we just continue to improve. That's the hope and the goal.
Well, Florida's open. They could do Florida.
Florida's wide open. That's where I went
You
to
got the
school.
Disney resort.
USF Bulls, baby. This is in Tampa where they just won where the Bucks just won.
So talk about that winning atmosphere there. I mean, we just saw the Lightning win. I mean, they beat my Stars, but hey, we saw the Rays in there, and now of course the Buccaneers. What is that in that atmosphere in Tampa like, from what you've seen or
God.
gathering, and what creates that
Tampa's
electric winning energy?
Tampa's so much fun. It's
Mhm.
like just an incredible city, great weather, great people. I think that the Lightning is just a well-run franchise.
Mhm.
I don't know a lot about hockey and hockey franchises, but like I know the Lightning are well run. They're just like a strong community-based
Mhm.
team centered franchise,
Mhm.
So I'm not surprised by them and their success. They do have a good team and good, ownership, so they're good. The As far as the Rays, not as far as the Rays, as far as the Bucks, their franchise has been heavily criticized a lot on
Mhm.
just the firing of coaches after 2 years. Like let them stick around for a little bit, but eventually they made this great call with Tom Brady, and this is paid off. And it's a very strong community down there in Tampa.
Do you think Winston could have succeeded more with Tampa if the right coach had been around, or you think it just wasn't? I mean, obviously nobody's gonna like say not with Tom Brady, but do you think there's ever potential for him to,
If,
bounce
if,
back?
if, if there was a better coach, maybe, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you have to take responsibility for
Mhm.
your play.
Yeah, it'll be intriguing to see what happens with him, because we don't know that
Yeah,
Breeze is going to retire or not. We're assuming, but he also talked about taking possible pay cut. They're paying
but
Taysom Hill right there. They've been paying him, and they only did 1 year with Winston. So
this was a best case scenario for him. I know he probably would have wanted to go somewhere to start right away,
mhm.
Jameis Winston, but to be able to learn underneath Drew Brees and to be in a franchise that throws the ball a lot, like he couldn't have had a better situation. If he doesn't succeed in New Orleans, then I don't know where he would succeed.
Here's a outsider's perspective. Does Dallas pay Dak, or do you see him in another uniform?
They gotta pay that man,
Mhm.
man. That man, clearly they should have paid him. When he got hurt, you saw how bad that season was. pay that man or set him off somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a prediction for it, but I think they didn't pay him.
Yeah, I mean, as a Cowboys fan, definitely hope that. I know they're coming close to that. Are they going to franchise tag him? He did signed with Anheuser-Busch, which is competitor to what the Cowboys have as their beer
Yeah,
provider. But I,
that's
you know, I
that's interesting.
well, and I just hope I hope they do, because if you're looking at who's available, there's been talks this week. Oh, could they trade for Russell Wilson? He's unhappy. That's if they can't pay Dak, how are they taking on that big contract? Even with Deshaun
Right.
Watson, Houston just paid him what 45 million or somewhere around that. So I know he's unhappy there, but somebody's going to have to take that on. And if you're struggling with cap a little bit, I think the thing is, not to go on a rant here, but I think about the Cowboys fans been thinking about this is, I think it's kind of getting they should have paid him before, and now it's like that back's against the wall. He got hurt.
Right.
But
Right.
at the end of the day, like,
He should not have played until he got that contract.
yeah. I mean, and you've seen that. You've seen players sit out a whole season until they get that contract. But the thing is like, who are you realistically able going to replace them with? I mean, you're going to want to draft and
Exactly.
gamble that. Or you go on Dalton,
No, hell no.
But once again, there's no veterans out there.
He's not even a good backup.
Well, and the thing is, I don't see anybody that's available veteran wise that would be worth really, really picking up. I mean, yeah, maybe a Watson, but that's if you can't pay Dak, how are you going to pay Watson?
Right. Exactly.
Pay the man.
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah. No, I mean, seriously. I mean, he's talented, and I mean, I think he can lead that team. And can you imagine Kaepernick, CeeDee Lamb, Kaepernick, Dalton Schultz?
Cooper.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I want to honestly see him, lead a team. And there's several that need. I mean, Niners are not probably set on Jimmy G. Colts need a quarterback.
Right.
Bears have been trying to find a quarterback for quite some time.
What is going on?
I don't know that Denver really with Drew Lock. I don't know. It's iffy.
Drew did not pan out the way they thought he was this
No.
year, so they can use someone else.
So I mean, you have Kaepernick there, and also, man, I felt bad for speaking of Florida, Brian Fitzpatrick. I thought he was looking good. I mean, he kept in that 3-3.
Magic. Yeah.
Is he long term? Maybe not, but he could be that bridge.
Right. He was doing good enough. My brother made a good point. He was doing good enough to where he shouldn't have been benched. Like he had a winning record at the time. His stats were pretty good. I think that they were just excited about Tua and wanted to see what he can do.
How about Kaepernick, Washington? Because I don't know what they're going to do with Alex Smith.
That would be Alex Smith. Yeah. And they've got a couple guys there. That could be interesting.
I'm excited for draft. I'm excited for the draft.
I'm super excited about it. Yeah. Every year I'm happy during fantasy football season. So,
well, real quick before I let you go, just two things. One, celebrity crush. Two, somebody you can't wait to interview that you've always wanted to interview.
Celebrity crush, I have to give. I have like so many, but I'd have to give it to like Anna Camp.
Okay.
And Megan Good.
All right.
So I have like a very diverse interest in women, so I always have to say two.
Hey, that's good. I mean, it's good to have options.
Yeah. So Megan Good and Anna Camp. I actually met Megan Good like within my first like month of being here, which is nuts.
Oh wow.
Crazy. Yeah. And then was hanging out with her with a group of friends one time, which was also nuts. So yeah, those are the two. Do you know both of them?
Camp I do a little bit, not Megan Good as much.
Megan Good was in Cousin Skeeter and Nickelodeon growing up.
Oh, okay.
Cousin Skeeter, and then she was in that 50 Cent video that really blew her up, and then she's been in like a bunch of movies and stuff. So yeah, her and Anna Camp was in Pitch Perfect.
Yes.
And many others. Who do I really want to interview? Jamie Foxx.
Oh, he would be awesome. He's so cool.
Jamie
Texas
Foxx.
guy, yeah. Terrell, not an hour from where I'm at, but he just seems like you could talk to him for hours.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He's a good dude. He seems like a good dude and just so talented. So.
And one more thing, actually, because you watch a lot of movies.
Sure.
What is a movie that people probably are surprised to know that you would like?
Ooh, a movie that people would surprise to know that I like. I I'm obsessed, and this is not ironic because I was there for the Bachelorette, but Palm Springs.
I love that movie.
It's
Andy
it's
Samberg.
it's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think it's like one of my top movies ever. I love it. It was that good.
And he's nominated too for Golden Globe, which I
Yeah.
love the uniqueness, the creativity. I mean, in oh, what's the actor's name? It was won an Oscar.
Kristen Milioti.
Kristen Milioti, but Jim Gordon and
Jim
Justice League.
Gordon. Jim Gordon, yeah.
What's the actor's name? Oh man, I can't believe it escaped my mind. Best supporting actor winner. Yeah, it's I always highly suggest it. I tell you what, during 2020, there's some good movies that popped up.
There were some good virtual movies.
I would say One Night in Miami by far. I love that movie. I don't know. Have you seen that one yet? One Night in Miami.
I haven't watched it yet, but I plan to watch it soon. I mean, I've just seen all the great reviews, and
it's
just being a Black man, I'm very happy to see content like that. So
it's phenomenal. I hope Regina King wins the Golden Globe for Best Director for it. Sound of Metal is another good under the radar about the drummer who was going deaf, the metal drummer. Yeah. And I just saw The Little Things recently. With Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. That's a good one. That's a creepy one, but it's a good one.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard a little mixed reviews on that one, but
I liked it. There's a nice little twist at the end, and I just like sometimes it's just nice seeing like the cast chemistry. Yeah. When you're looking at Best Actor and support, and Denzel is one of my favorite all time. Yeah. Training Day.
Yeah. Training Day. The reason I'm so behind is I got put onto Dexter. And Dexter is one of the most amazing shows, and I had 8 seasons, and so I'm like, you know what? Let me just kill Dexter before I just go on to something else. Kill Dexter. That was no pun intended. He's a serial killer. So I just wanted to knock out the show. Before I moved on to anything else. So that's why I've been like super late to get to some of the movies and stuff.
Oh, that's totally fine.
I'm quicker with like movies and shows.
Well, that's like Game of Thrones. You got to really pace yourself through Game of Thrones.
Right.
And Breaking Bad.
Focus and stick to it. Yeah.
Well, Garin, I want to thank you again for taking your time. This has been an ultimate pleasure. Where can people follow you, find you?
Yeah, absolutely. At Garin Flowers on Instagram, Garin. Clubhouse now at Garin, Garin. TikTok, Flowers on Flowers, and Twitter at Garin Flowers. So Garin and Flowers, you can't go wrong.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much.
Hey, Charlie, you're the man. Thanks for taking this time to interview me. I loved all the research and in-depth questions you asked. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, you take care, man.
You too.
Hope you enjoyed this video. And to watch full episodes of the podcast, click here. And don't forget to subscribe to be notified for future interviews. Thank you for watching.